Hi, thanks for tuning in today. This is the first Front Porch Conversation of 2021, and guess what? We're not on the front porch. Winter changed our plans a little bit, but here we are at the Harmony Center, and we could call it a fireside chat, but there's no fire in the fireplace. But I do have as our guest today, Marcia Price. Marcia, welcome.
Thank you.
And Marcia is new to the village. You moved in
November 4th.
And where do you live?
And I live on River Birch Lane.
In Riverwoods.
In the Riverwoods, and I'm right on the corner.
And there are Dutch people in your yard, right?
There are. I've collected Dutch memorabilia for a long time, and so there's a couple, two different couples, and they kiss each other all the time.
Well, good. That'll be how people will know where you live.
That's right.
Well, I will tell you all today that this is not my first interview with Marcia Price. We've known each other over 20 years, and we worked together at one time in Jacksonville, and I'm proud to have her as my neighbor and friend.
Thank you.
So, Marcia, tell people about where you were born and where you grew up.
I grew up in Michigan, Kalamazoo, and I went to school in Holland, Michigan at Hope College, and I lived there for many years until we got transferred to Portland, Oregon. And I lived in Portland for a couple years. And then we moved to Jacksonville. And we lived there for over 40 years. And then I came to visit Ann a few times and decided I loved it here. And so that's where I chose to spend my retirement years is here at the village, and I love it. Good.
And you're just anxious to get involved with other things on campus that are good.
I am, yeah. I tend, I guess by nature, to be a fixer. I'm always looking for a project or something, so I'm sure I will find something at the wood shop or any of the other opportunities. I'm not so sure about the ceramics because my hands aren't steady enough to paint anything, but yeah, I think here is just the ideal place. You can be sociable, and with the COVID, excuse me, with the COVID thing going around, everyone was isolating, and I was feeling pretty bored and lonely, but now I feel that there's enough comfort here, although we still have to be cautious. You know, we can get out a little bit more, and I enjoy doing that.
Well, let's back up a little bit to Kalamazoo.
Okay.
And you went all the way through school there? Great.
Yes, all through until high school, yeah. And when I was working there, I discovered that driving in the snow was just not for me. I was always white-knuckling it all the way home, and I didn't like the idea of living in the snow. So after our first child was born, then we moved to Portland. And that was nice, except it was very wet, and it was hard to get outside and do things because it was always raining, but it was very beautiful, very green. The mountains were lovely, but we moved just before the volcano erupted, so we missed all the ash and everything from that. I wasn't sorry. And then we moved to Florida, and living in the South was kind of a cultural shock for me. People were so kind and friendly, and there was more diversity, and I just loved it. Right from the beginning, I loved living in Florida. It was hot, but I was fine with that.
And when people back home was saying it's 40 below or 4 below,
yeah.
You just laughed, right?
I did. I will send my brother-in-law a Facebook message and tell him it's only 60 here today and we're freezing, and he'll say, it's only -3 today, and no sympathy for you. So.
What about favorite childhood memories, things you like to do as a child or opportunities you had?
Childhood memories, well, probably I was kind of a quiet child and stayed inside a lot, but I loved to read, and I can remember laying on the couch reading the story of Helen Keller. That was one of my favorite books at the time, and yeah, I had 2 other siblings, and so, but we didn't have a lot of neighbors by us, so we just pretty much hung out together. And my mom always baked. She was a terrific baker, so I can remember if you knew it was Saturday, if you could smell her baking cookies or something in the kitchen, it was time to get up.
And you have kept that love of cookies ever since.
I have. Was raised on them.
And you're pretty good at sharing them, too.
Yeah, I try.
Thank you.
That's so I don't eat them all myself.
Ulterior motive.
Yeah, I have to get rid of them. I still enjoy baking.
When you were at Hope College, what was your major? And
I majored in psychology, and I had a minor in English, and I got my teaching certificate while I was there. And I hadn't taught very long. It didn't take me long to discover teaching wasn't for me. I just didn't have the patience, and so then I kind of switched career paths and went more into the social working aspect. I really enjoyed doing that. I worked in daycares, and I worked I worked for the state of Florida, things like that, as more in the social work field.
Well, I know the first time I met you was an interview for a job.
Yes, it was.
And I remember you saying you are on your resume you had been the director of a daycare center at a downtown church in Jacksonville.
That's true, yeah.
And I remember asking you, well, have you had any experience working with older people? And you said, well, not directly. And I said, well, I think if you could manage all those little young children, maybe you would be a suitable employee for an adult.
Well, I think it's all kind of in this same field, really. You know, if you can work with people, you can, and just learn to listen and find out what's important to them. I think you can work with almost any group. I just wasn't good at teaching.
Well, after you came to work at Cathedral Residences, and you were a service coordinator there, and that's a term that a lot of people here can identify with because we have service coordinators.
That's true, yeah. And I've met mine, and Ashley's very sweet, so I can appreciate all that she does.
You know what goes on behind the scenes.
That's
in a lot
right,
of cases.
yeah. Get a lot of phone calls and just a variety of problems that need to be fixed. It's all good, though. You always feel so good when you've accomplished something.
Mm. You have 2 sons. And tell us about your sons and your grandchildren.
Oh, I have one son that's living in Jacksonville, and he's a paramedic, and one son that's in Virginia, and he works for the Correctional Institute. He's an instructor now, so he's teaching other people how to be correctional officers. And between the 2 boys, I have about 6 grandchildren now, and they are the boys. One son had boys and one son had girls. And so the one that's in Virginia is raising boys, and they're expecting a new one, and another in May. And So they have kind of a split family. They have 3 children that are much older, and now they have 2 that are much younger. And I think they're really enjoying this second set. Now that they're older themselves, they seem to just be glowing when they deal with their babies. So I think that's great. And the son that's in Jacksonville, he has 3 girls, and they're all grown. And every now and again, when I go back to Jacksonville, I get to spend a little time with one or the other. You just never know who's going to be working or who's in school, and but you grab them as you can. That's fun.
After you left Cathedral Residences to work, you went to work for the state of Florida. Would you tell us about what you did there?
I worked for the state of Florida for many years, and I worked in the Department of Children and Families, and I was an investigator with the Elder Abuse Department, and we investigated cases of exploitation and abuse and neglect and self-neglect. And I enjoyed that, but then I became a supervisor, and I was just mainly reviewing other people's reports and making sure that they had crossed all their T's and dotted their I's. And so I felt like I was living vicariously through them. And in a way, that distance did help, because sometimes witnessing that kind of abuse is very difficult. It's very hard on a person to do it for many years. And so I think that the change kind of helped. But it's a stressful position. I learned more roads and neighborhoods of Jacksonville than I ever thought I would. But yeah, I did that for a number of years, and I happily retired. I was more than ready.
And during your retirement, up until now, what's been your favorite part of being retired?
I like just having time to do what I want to do, I guess. I enjoy working on refinishing furniture and different things like that. I like a variety of things, but I don't like doing the same thing all the time. So I'll have one project and get that finished, and I did some work on my house and some remodels, and I actually learned to hook up pipes for the sink and different things like that. And I found YouTube to be one of my best friends. You can learn a lot just going to YouTube on how to fix something or how to repair it. But mostly, some days I didn't feel like doing it, so there was always a book or a television show or sewing project or something else, just kind of moved around. I can't say I'm really good at any one particular thing, but I like to try different things.
Yeah, I've just been amazed as a neighbor, the things you've taken apart and put back together and hanging all your own pictures. And, I've been very impressed, Marcia.
Thank you.
Because I have no mechanical aptitude.
Well, it's fun. And if it doesn't work out, there's almost always a fix, And if it's broke, if I can't fix it, it's still broke. Or if I make it worse, then it's time to replace it.
I know that you've talked about your Sunday routine growing up, and that involved church. And how has that been as a part of your life, your faith and your...
It's, looking back, I cannot believe how dedicated both of my parents were in teaching us about the Bible, and it wasn't just Sunday school and church, a couple times a week. It was reading at home. After dinner, Dad always read the Bible stories, and then in the morning he would usually read something like the Our Daily Bread devotional or something. And they talked about it, and they were active in the church. And I can remember as a child, we lived, it was a very, very small church. And everyone that went to that church really had to do double duty. It wasn't you just went to church on Sunday. They were, my parents were actually working as the janitors. And so one day a week we would have to go over there, and our job was in the Sunday school classes. We had to put the chairs up on the table so they could vacuum. But they were, they were active in taking us to youth group activities, and I can remember my dad even ice skating with us when we had a skating party and a roller skating, and they were just very, very much involved, and that didn't leave me after. Some of it, I hate to say, but as I read the Bible now, I think, I don't remember hearing about this and wondering where my mind was when he was reading. But as a teenager, I tended to tune things out. And
I'm sure you're not the only teenager that ever did that.
I did. I was just like, I don't need that stuff, and I don't want to hear it, and it's boring. And but then, as an adult, a lot of it I began to appreciate more and more, and I thought, I wish I had listened better and talked to my dad more, because he was always studying the Bible and different books and things like that. And I guess he'll forgive me one day. But yeah, now I can appreciate it much, much more. And it's been sad not going to church because of the virus. And I do tend to still watch the sermons from the Jacksonville church. I guess it's still my comfort zone to go to that one. But I'm looking forward to going to maybe a new church and getting involved with that. And I do still appreciate the small churches.
We talked about your Dutch people in your yard.
Uh-huh.
And you have a Dutch heritage.
I do, yeah. My dad's parents came over from the Netherlands, and I have documents of them, my grandfather coming over to Ellis Island and stuff. And I really do appreciate their heritage, and I of course I love Delftware. I have a lot of Delftware that I've collected over the years.
Why don't you tell our viewers, in case they don't know what Delftware is?
Delftware it's a white and blue. It can be a dish, it can be a vase, it could be about anything, but it's blue and white and usually has a windmill painted on it or something like that. I just always found it very attractive. And as my children got older and they couldn't think of what to get me, they always knew to get me Delftware. So now I have really quite a big collection. No, but I still cherish it. It's really pretty. And then my mom would make a Dutch dessert. It was called, we called it almond letters, but I think the correct name was bunquettes. And then my grandmother would make babbelaar, and there was different treats and stuff that they would bake. And there is different, like at Christmas, they had different traditions where they would have, instead of wrapping each gift, they would have like a pile of gifts, and they just put a sheet over it for each person would just have like their little pile of gifts. They didn't wrap each one separately. And instead of, and St. Nick would come around and he'd put candy in the wooden shoes or some special little treats. They didn't do big Christmas like what we do, but yeah, there was some different things that was fun to grow up with.
And did you keep some of those traditions alive for your children?
I did when they were little. I didn't do the sheet over the gifts, but I would have, candy and stuff in wooden shoes. And so they're quite familiar with all my collection of wooden shoes and stuff that are around, just different little things. But we did Santa Claus and stuff because that's what they were going up in the neighborhood, with, and we had fun with that.
Have you had a chance to visit Holland?
I did.
Or the Netherlands?
I did, yes. We didn't get to spend much time there, but it was different than what I expected it to be. Even back in the 70s, there was a lot of, it wasn't as clean and pretty, I guess, as I thought. But there sure were a lot of people on bicycles. You had to watch out for bicycles. But it was very nice. And I didn't get to taste too many treats, so I missed that.
Well, the closest I've been to Holland is Holland, Michigan.
Ah, that's pretty.
And I was there about the time of the Tulip Festival, and that's amazing. Did you get to see the tulips in Holland?
Oh, yeah. We kind of course, we were in college at the time in Holland, and we didn't like all the tourists because it made things so different. But we loved the tulips, and going to Windmill Island and different things like that was so pretty, and the colors were quite vivid, and you always had to kind of wonder, though, because up there you just never know when the snow is going to hit, and but they sure can grow some pretty flowers there.
And I was inquiring, were there any that would grow in Florida? And they have a few varieties they've developed. So I bought some bulbs, and for about 2 years, I actually had a few tulip blooms, but they don't like this climate that well.
They really don't, and the squirrels like to eat the bulbs too. So.
And when they ship the bulbs, you have to keep them in your refrigerator.
Yeah.
Until we have to plant them in the spring, and they planted them months ago already.
I know. Yeah. Well, they don't need to put them in the refrigerator there.
No, they don't.
They just park them outside. But yeah, around here, I had tried planting some too, and the squirrels just eat them up. So, oh well, they must be good.
Do you have other travel places you'd like to travel to on your bucket list?
I would like to go to Alaska, and I really want to see the Northern Lights. I think that's a big one on my bucket list.
Those sound like interesting. I've been to Alaska, but never seen the Northern Lights.
Yeah.
And from the pictures I've seen, it's just amazing.
I think that would be just incredible, and I know you have to be there at the right time, and not every year's a good year for it, but I think that would be terrific. And I haven't been on a cruise yet, so I'm thinking that might be fun to do. But it's been so many years since I was in Europe that I know it's different now.
Well, pretty much any place is different now than it would have been that many years ago.
Exactly.
But even here, you know.
I'm sure, yeah.
Because I hear people talking about, you know, when the village had only one telephone and electricity had just come to the village, and I even have trouble thinking about that, you know.
Yeah.
If you were going to give advice to a young person, and I'm sure you have with your sons and your grandchildren, thinking today, what advice would you give a young person?
I would say listen to your parents. Tune in when they're talking. I think one of my favorite commandments is honor your father and your mother, that their days may be long, that your days may be long on this earth. It's a commandment that also comes with a promise. But having worked in the field where I saw neglect and abuse and exploitation, and having been with both of my parents as they were in their dying years and months, I just treasure that time. And I'd hear advertisements on television, you know, oh, you're in the sandwich generation, you're taking care of your parents, you're taking care of your children, you're working. And yes, it is hard, but it's also a privilege and an honor. I think that would be my advice.
That's great advice. And I echo that too. Had the opportunity to be involved with my parents in their later years.
Yeah.
And had my dad actually live with us for 7 years. And that was a great legacy to my sons as well.
Sure, yeah. And I think if the children witness that, they grow up to do it themselves. So that's kind of what I'm hoping, that as I age, one of them will say, well, come live with me. But I probably wouldn't. I think this is the ideal situation here, where you can pretty much live a long life independently, and then there's different places you can go if you need more assistance. So I think that's perfect.
Well, Marcia, thank you so much for sitting down with us and for us to have the opportunity to introduce you to the members here at the Village. I want you to tune in again and see our next episode of the Front Porch Conversations. Thanks for watching.